repeat that, this is going to continue until May 15th. And so we are primarily in the containing the virus situation. And in terms of the city, couple things. First of all, I know people have a lot of questions about the virus itself and about the data, the statistics, what the numbers are day to day, where they're coming from. And that information is available daily at the county's website, vcemergency.com. One thing I want to let people know, and this concerns me because we at the city are asked a lot of questions about this data. The bottom line is the city is not qualified to interpret this information. We are not qualified to provide advice or projections about this virus. So everyone needs to focus on the information being provided by the medical experts, hence the county public health department via the Dr. Robert Levin, the health official. So I know there are a lot of articles out there, there are a lot of news stories, and they all take a certain angle at it. And I think that can get both overwhelming, raises a lot of anxiety, and can also just be so confusing. And I worry that people are looking for places where they can have positive information, but the city, again, the city is not qualified to give the medical interpretation of what's happening. Now, in terms of what we have to do as a city, it's pretty simple. We have to maintain the essential services for our community. And I know you may have heard me talk about this, and that comes down to police, fire, all the utilities, water, garbage, sewer, as well as our library and recreation staff who have repurposed themselves to provide food deliveries to our seniors and to participate in food distribution every week. So we're doing a lot of work. Now, it's been more than a month that we suspended all of our programs where we were gathering people, such as the senior center, the library, the recreation programs, and the after-school programs. So, which is pretty much in line with every other community in California. We, with the exception of this past Easter weekend, Easter Passover weekend, we have been able to keep our parks open and our beaches open, albeit we are patrolling them and encouraging people to follow the physical distancing rules while they're out there getting, stretching their legs and getting some fresh air. There's a slew of things we've done with regard to having moratoriums on evictions, suspending our utility, all of our late payment fees have been suspended. The council approved not only moratorium on evictions, the city council approved ensuring that we would not discontinue utility services for anybody in Oxnard during this emergency. And also the major utilities like Charter and Edison and SoCal Gas have made the same commitments, even though the governor's orders also do not allow for that. So again, we're waiving any penalties that we normally would have. Our business tax payments, those late penalties are gone. We've stopped, and again, this has gone on for weeks now. We stopped issuing parking tickets because we stopped street sweeping, given the fact that due to the safe at home order, many people have to stay home. So they're not able to move their cars. And again, we are participating with Food Share to distribute food to people that have needs in our community. The county is doing a lot of good work with regard to providing outreach and information proactively to the farm worker community. And it's also good news, I think it was just yesterday or the day before, the governor established a fund in California to help with unemployed, undocumented workers. And we're also, and all this information is constantly available on our TV stations and all of our social media sites. And almost all of it is in English and Spanish. So we're reminding people about all the various scams that are being perpetrated in the community. And not, again, not just here in Oxnard, but all over the country. Even we, the city, get hit by scams trying to trick us into filling out information to get the federal stimulus money. We are working hard, and next week we will launch a program where we have repurposed our facilities and our staff to actually sit down and help individuals who need help to complete their unemployment benefits applications. The unemployment numbers in the county for the last month are staggering. I think it's been in March, in the first week of April, there are 42,000 unemployment claims in Ventura County. It'll be a few weeks before we get the data from the state that will give us the numbers just for the city of Oxnard. So very quickly, I also want to go over the effect of all of this on the city's budget, our current budget and next year's budget. So we project nearly $4 million of decrease in our tax revenues between sales tax and the hotel tax, transient occupancy tax. And we are looking at another $1 to $2 million in all of our other revenues decreasing, and that's just for the remainder of the fiscal year we are in, which ends on June 30. So there are other staggering numbers that the state, the League of California Cities has organized with using data for projections. So I'm going to highlight a few for you. So retail in the US decreased by 8.7% in March. And in March, only 2 weeks of March did the country experience the lockdown. So that's a severe drop in retail. I just gave the unemployment numbers. We project in California for sales tax to actually decrease between 30 and 37%. And that's adjusted for any increases in online commerce. The hotel tax they're projecting a drop. I mean, it's almost entirely 80 to 90%. Business license tax, and this business license tax payments lag year after year, but they're expecting that to go down 10 to 15% over the next 2 years. The property transfer tax will slow down this year, as well as a variety of fees that we normally get. So, for example, we will have zero revenue from parking tickets for the months of March, April, May, and June. That's one example. So we have to struggle to provide the essential services that I mentioned, and crucial to that is keeping our employees safe, because we are so lean as an organization. If we have an internal breakout of the coronavirus, it could devastate our services. I'll give you a couple of quick examples. So for police, we only have 84 patrol officers, and we have the shifts where we have 3 shifts, and we have an average of 13 or 14 officers per shift. And if we get, if a handful of people get sick or get symptoms and they couldn't come to work, if we drop down to below 10 officers a shift, then we can't effectively patrol. In fire, we have a total of 108 firefighters, and we have 36 firefighters on for each shift, and we have 3 shifts. And if we are down each shift by 3 firefighters, right? This doesn't mean people are actually sick and in the hospital. It could just mean they have the symptoms and therefore they have to quarantine for the 14 plus days. But if we're down 3 firefighters each shift, then in effect, we can't cover at least an engine or a station. So we are, as some people say, we're working on the razor's edge already, and this only makes it worse for us. So we are working to put together a balanced financial plan for the council's consideration that takes into account the decreases in this fiscal year, again, that ends June 30, as well as a budget for next year, the next fiscal year, the 2021 budget. And you all, I'm sure everyone remembers where we were this time last year with that budget, where we had a $9+ million structural deficit, and the council was able to cut about 2/3 of that, which was very painful. So going into this, we still had a $3 million structural deficit prior to the virus, but we had made efforts to increase our revenues. So we were, before the virus hit, we were excited that we may actually be able to present a balanced budget for the coming year. Of course, there's no way that's going to happen now, and we have to figure out how to present a budget that will get us through. Obviously, we're going to have to utilize our reserves. We don't have the healthiest of reserves, but we have some reserves. And this is, if ever there was a moment to utilize your rainy day fund, this is it. So there'll be a combination of cutbacks, reductions, using the reserve, and probably borrowing from the enterprise funds for the cash flow. Because one of the many things the governor has done to stabilize California is to defer the payment of sales tax. So not only is our sales tax revenue declining, the amount that's left has been deferred into the following year. So not only are we expecting less, now we can expect that we won't even get it on time. So we have to have the wherewithal to get through that. Now there's a glimmer of hope in Washington. Our congresswoman and our senators are working very hard with all of their colleagues, and there are a couple of competing bills right now in Washington. And the latest update today is they'll re-engage negotiations next Monday, and that may provide us with actual relief for cities like us, and specifically to provide money to make up for all the lost revenue. So while we can't count on that right now, I'm hopeful that that might happen. So Gabe, with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Ready?
Yeah, we hear you. Just before we do that real quickly, I did want to welcome Mayor Tim Flynn, who did jump on during your portion there, Mr. Nguyen. So thank you for joining, Tim. We really appreciate you being able to be here as well. And so we just went over the update, as you heard, that Alex did. And Mayor Pro Tem's going to do her portion with some updates and questions she had. And then we'll turn it over to you next, okay?
Welcome.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Welcome, Mayor. I don't see him, though. Is he on camera?
He is, yes.
Good. I had a couple of issues. I really, my effort during the last few weeks, where I've been home most of the time, except for very rare occasions, going out to very carefully to get groceries. My efforts have been to try to give people information. I do get a lot of calls from people about what to do, and there's a lot of agencies that are working to help people. And one of the most important ones is Food Share. You may have heard of the pop-up pantries, and you can find the calendar for those times when food is being given out, groceries are being given out to Oxnard residents. And then they have dates in other cities and other areas, but for Oxnard, you can find it by going to foodshare.com and look for the pop-up pantry list. You should be able to find it pretty easy. If you or you know of people who need groceries, not everybody, a lot of people have been left really in the lurch when they lost their job, or it's been cut in half, or all the other things that can happen during this crisis. And one thing everybody has to have is food. So I'm very grateful to Food Share They are looking for donations because they used to get a lot of their donations from groceries, would give leftover food and supplies to Food Share, but those have disappeared because of people's fear that they won't be able to get enough food or whatever you need from the store. So in fact, they have to go buy the supplies. So I've made a modest donation. I hope others can as well if they're able to do that. I also know there's some people who cannot go shopping for themselves. They don't have a vehicle, or they're supposed to stay home. If you're over 65, you're supposed to not leave your house except to go to the doctor. And there is a service that will buy groceries for you with your list. Of course, you have to pay for it unless for some reason you're eligible to get free groceries. And I would recommend that people call 211. It's the information service that's operated by Interface, and they can provide lots of information for people on where to get every kind of help. And they have services in Spanish as well. So that's one thing. The other is, I don't know, maybe Alex can actually answer this question. I do get a lot of calls from people who say, I see people congregating. I see people who are not in the same family apparently, and playing in the parks or walking together or even in their homes, and people want to complain about it because they're afraid of the contagion. Alex, could you chime in on that? What can our police officers do about that, if anything? Is he there? Did Alex leave?
I had to unmute, sorry.
Okay.
Hello. So we are patrolling, and it's not just police. We have code enforcement and our recreation staff, because we're trying to keep it at a soft enforcement / encouragement mode right now. So there are instances where people are not taking this seriously and they are congregating. So we approach them and we remind them of the rules. Because there is a formal public health order, and we are trying to avoid having to arrest anyone or to write citations, even though this week I signed an order allowing for citations, and the council will be asked to ratify that next Tuesday night in the cases where people are being difficult about physical, social distancing. So, and then we have the drones patrolling the beaches so that we can see what's happening. So I think overall, most of us are following the rules of the public health official. There are certain areas, including the golf course, where, some people, for whatever reasons, believe that that's an essential activity right now. And for now, until the public health official changes that rule, the golf courses are closed. So, and it's a real shame and a real waste of our resources to have to send police officers to the golf course to ask people to not play golf. So we are able to respond when people are calling and letting us know whether they're using the 311 app or the non-emergency number. We had a few calls today about some activity at the beach, and we did go and talk to people down there.
Thanks. Thanks. So if I can continue, the other thing I wanted to mention was, and the city has this on the website too, there are, unfortunately, people want to take advantage of this crisis by calling or sending emails with scams about everything, particularly testing or miracle cures for the virus. And I think it's very important to listen to the county health officer about what is available in terms of testing. I know we've all gotten these emails or these messages saying, this is the cure for the virus, a certain product or combination of household items. I know there was one that said you could use bleach, which is extremely dangerous to do. So please be careful with that. Also, nobody is supposed to be going door to door selling anything or checking in on anything. And I did have somebody come to our door and say they were doing an energy survey. And I said, you know, you're not supposed to be going door to door during this period. So watch out for that too. And then finally, I just wanted to talk about the census. Everybody should have gotten, every household should have gotten the questionnaire. Very easy to do online. It takes less than 10 minutes. And it's very important for our city because every person who lives here, from every baby on up to every living person, if we don't get a full count of everybody who's here, it doesn't matter what their immigration status is, we will lose money. And you know the city needs money from the federal government. And it's not really from the federal government, it's from us. We pay our taxes and we need to get our fair share back. And it does support our public safety, supports our infrastructure, supports everything in the city, our housing, our public housing. So please, if you haven't done your census yet, please do it. I understand we're under 50%. I believe that's what you said the other day, Alex. And reporting, what happens is the census, I think it's been extended for a few months,
Yes.
but the next phase is actually knocking on doors, and that's what's been delayed. So if you don't want people knocking on your door, fill out your census online and tell your friends and neighbors to do that too. So that's really all I had. And I think now it's time to turn it over to Tim, and then later I guess we'll have some questions.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. So let's go ahead and hear from our Mayor Tim Flynn, and he has some items he would like to touch on with everyone as well. And then after his portion, we'll turn it over to questions. I see there are some hands up. So again, if you have questions, there's a raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. Go ahead and just click that once and it'll show me who has questions, and then we'll go down the list there for folks. All right, so I'll turn it over to Tim now. Thank you, Mayor Tim Flynn.
Thank you very much, and I hope I'm unmuted, that you can hear me. I am grateful to have the opportunity with Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez and also the City Manager to address this neighborhood council, the Fremont South Neighborhood Council. And I want to thank your leader, Gabe, who I've had a long relationship with. And I think he's doing an outstanding job in the neighborhood, and that's very important. And Gabe, is it my understanding that how many people are actually viewing right now?
I think we have a little over 20 people right now. We have 15 attendees, but some of them have multiple people viewing at once.
Right. Well, I just want to thank everybody considering the circumstances. And I grew up in the Fremont South neighborhood on North L Street. So perhaps those that are watching, maybe some of my neighbors are actually watching. And to have this first opportunity to address the neighborhood council and the neighborhood that I grew up in is great. I want to say that I like what Mayor Pro Tem had to say, and I also like what the city manager had to say. It's very informative. And on the level of information, if you are interested in getting further updates, I provide those on Friday evening at 6 p.m. on Facebook Live. So Friday, tomorrow night, 6 p.m. on Facebook Live. And you go to Tim B. Flynn, T-I-M, B as in boy, F-L-Y-N-N, and the broadcast lasts approximately 10 minutes. So I'll be able to give you up-to-date information. What I like to do as mayor, perhaps, is talk about maybe the big picture, and I think it's great that people are going to have some specific questions. The most positive thing to say is that the city of Oxnard today is fully operational. There are naturally some limitations with recreation and a variety of other things like that, but for the most part, city government, your city government, is fully operational, and our primary focus right now is on this crisis, this virus, and that is protecting the maximum amount of people that we can in the city of Oxnard from contracting this virus. And making sure that the health and safety of the residents are protected. So that is a positive thing to start out this meeting. I think what the city manager said, I tuned in a little bit late and I apologize for that. We had some technical difficulties. But what the city manager and Mayor Pro Tem had to say is part of that big picture. The fact of the matter is that there are a lot of services that are going out to meet the needs of the public. And I'll first and foremost talk about businesses and just mention again, businesses and individuals. So the city will launch an effort to help businesses apply for small business administration loans. So that will keep them afloat. They're having major cash flow problems, as is the city of Oxnard. And then for individuals, the city is also going to be helping them fill out unemployment insurance claims. So that is a very positive thing from the city side. All the utilities, the trash, the water, and wastewater, all of those are functioning at 100%. So that's good. Those essential services are needed. And the police department and the fire departments are fully purposed towards not only continuing their normal routine, but also in particular making sure that the community remains safe with social distancing and everything else. I'd like to also talk about food share that Mayor Pro Tem just spoke about. And in particular, there were 3 locations where food was being handed out. And now my understanding, I could be wrong, it's all going to be in one location at College Park, which is right next door to Oxnard College off of Rose Avenue. And I believe it's from 1 to 3 p.m. People will be driving in. No one's allowed to walk in. People will be driving in, those in need. They'll be given food in their cars, and the people that are working for food share will have masks and gloves naturally. We're encouraging residents, if they do go and pick up food, that they also wear their mask. And what's really important about food share is that we donate to food share. And I want to commend my colleague, Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez. She's probably one of the most generous donors I've ever met in my life. She donates to many, many causes. And she had mentioned that if you go to foodshare.com, you can actually donate. There's a donate button there. And you can actually sign up to volunteer to help with this food distribution effort that will be between 1 and 3 p.m. We'll ask the city manager for the details, but my understanding is that there's already been one distribution, and close to 1,400 people or 1,500 people received food from that distribution, and they had a supply for 2,000 people. So everybody that showed up at that very first distribution at College Park was able to get food. The homeless, very important, the big picture. As many of you know, we have a real challenge with homelessness in the city of Oxnard. The most recent count shows anywhere between 6 or 5, the high 500s to up to 700. It really fluctuates on how many homeless people are in the city of Oxnard. We have a shelter on K Street, and that shelter houses 105 individuals. For social distancing purposes, we were able to divide the shelter across the street in the old Bannister Gym, which was part of Oxnard High School. And so we have half of the 105, approximately 50 or just over 50, that are in the gym, and then the other half are in the former National Guard Armory. The County of Ventura has 3 hotels in Thousand Oaks, Ventura, and Oxnard that are providing services for the most vulnerable. These are older people that are older residents that happen to be homeless, as well as people that are disabled. And at one point, the Vagabond Inn, which is the hotel in Oxnard, it has 66 rooms. Half of those rooms were filled, but the most recent report that the city staff provided is that 9 of the rooms currently are being occupied, because several of the individuals that were residing there had to remain secluded because of possibilities that they had contracted the virus. And so after that 2-week period again passed, many of them have gone back to the shelter itself. So to end, I would just like to stress to you, the viewer, that first of all, I want to thank you for observing the rules, abiding by the rules. We do have some challenges that remain where I went shopping today at Trader Joe's. Unfortunately, we don't have a Trader Joe's in Oxnard. I hope we can get one, Mr. City Manager and Mayor Pro Tem. The social distancing and the masks that the employees wear and everything that they're doing there is really a great model. And I know recently I've heard from Vaughn's or about Vaughn's that they're asking that they're not allowing people inside unless they actually have a cloth mask. So we have a lot of challenges that remain. And naturally, we can understand that the police department has their normal duties, right? They have the normal things that police departments do. But on top of that, they're trying to respond to complaints that the public will have by calling the non-emergency line. And the public will complain about, hey, I was just at this location and people were gathering there. And so the police department then is diverted from what their normal routine might be to responding to those requests for service. So I want to thank you as residents for supporting the city in this time of need. We are going to defeat this virus. It's a real challenge for all of us. None of us have been through this before. And even though the city manager just outlined the fact that we have some real financial challenges that will be, the city council will be facing, we're hopeful that the Congress of the United States will act and that there will be two separate bills or legislation right now in Congress. It could be even more by now. That hopefully will help out so the city doesn't have to cut its budget further. And so once again, thank you for your time. We need to hold the line. I'm not going to speculate on how much longer this is going to go. And I'll end by saying the state of California, all the states in this country are basically directing what's happening in states. The state is giving orders, and I'll just stress that, the state is giving orders and recommendations to county government and city government. So the city of Oxnard is following the lead of the state of California, and county government is following the lead of the state of California, just to understand how the line of authority is. And so we're making sure that the orders that are coming from Governor Newsom, that they are being enforced and that they're being abided by, that they're being implemented. And we also get a lot of direction, of course, from county government and the county government's health officer, Dr. Robert Levin, who he's not only doing an outstanding job, but the whole county is doing an outstanding job. So I want to thank you, and I'm open for questions, as I know Mayor Pro Tem and the city manager are open, and I hope that this crisis will end soon. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. So we'll go ahead and go to our question and answer portion now. And there are some folks who have their hands up. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. You'll probably see a notification that will invite you to unmute. And just so you all know, because we have 3 folks here, if you have it for all of them, you can just mention that. But if it's specific to any one of our panelists, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, or our city manager, if you want to go ahead and address that to who it's meant to be directed toward. So our first question is coming from Kim Winch, and then following her questions will be Manuel Herrera. So Kim, you should be able to speak now. Can you go ahead and do that?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We do hear you. Go right ahead.
Okay, I have 3 questions. I have 1 for Carmen and 2 for Alex. Am I allowed to ask all 3, or do I need to take turns?
Well, it seems pretty, you got it pretty well structured. Go ahead and let's address Carmen's first.
Okay, Carmen, my computer keeps blipping out on me. So when you were talking about the pop-up food places,
Yeah.
I didn't get a web address. You were saying the web address and everything went mute on me. Is that the food share web address?
Foodshare.com.
Okay.
Just to
Okay.
make sure it's correct. And it's the first, it's almost the first thing you see. The first thing you see is donate, but then it's on there, where to get emergency supplies. I'll look it up right now and confirm that.
No,
Go ahead.
I've seen that. I've gone to that website. So I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a second one that I was missing. I did see the food share with the donate. Yeah.
You're on Facebook and you go to Ventura County has a few pages about the emergency, and I've seen it there too.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I just want to say, Kim, I know you from all of our emergency planning meetings, and I think we talked about supplies ready in our homes. I know that what we were thinking was earthquake. I don't know how to compare it, but anyway, thank you for your work.
You're welcome. I was kind of wondering how many people had enough water, because I've been pounding that one out for months now. So I was wondering how that was going. Thank
Right.
you. Okay, so my other question was for Alex. I love how you went over, because when we had the Ready and Resilient meeting on Tuesday, one of the people asked about, because she was a neighborhood chair and she was getting asked by her neighbors, how is Oxnard enforcing the stay at home if there's no order in Oxnard, just a recommendation to follow the county and the state? How will it be enforced? Like if you're like Gabe said, he drove around and came back because he's getting a little housebound. Are we going to get stopped? Will we be ticketed? When you said you signed an order, is that just for people who are too close together?
Right. So first of all, just to clarify, it's not that we don't have an order. We wouldn't have an order for this for a health reason. So in other circumstances, we may have a local order. So it's not that we're recommending people follow the public health official's order. People must follow the public health official's order, right? So just to be clear, the county public health official's order applies to every city in the county. So now in terms of enforcement, we are enforcing, for example, certain businesses who insist on trying to stay open when they are absolutely not an essential service. We've had to deal with a handful of businesses that are, quote unquote, sneaking patrons in through the back door and so on. Now, in terms of Gabe going out for a drive, that's actually not prohibited, because Dr. Levin understands that people need to get out, get air and stretch their legs, but that's why they have specific guidance for physical distance. So they don't want everyone, groups of people walking the paths or walking across the park. We've got to have the physical distancing. And I think it's better now that the governor is starting to call this physical distancing versus social distancing. So I think that makes it a little bit more clear for people. So we have the authority to enforce the county's order. And we want to do it as gently as possible, but in certain cases, we may have to start issuing citations if people are repeat offenders.
So what are you exactly looking for? I guess they had a food share in her neighborhood, and people were coming out with their kids, and they cut off the street to hand out the food, and people were all clumping together to come pick up the food. So that made the neighborhood a little concerned. Same thing happening at Harrington School. We got another comment about the food being handed out there, and there was no physical distancing there. So,
so we've contacted the people organizing those food distributions, and in that Harrington case, it is related to the school district to encourage them to do it properly. The last thing we want to do is shut down a distribution of food that people desperately need. But on the other hand, the people providing the food and organizing it need to respect the rules. So we're working on that.
Okay, good. No, I think her question was, she was concerned they were going to say, if I go get my food, am I going to get a ticket for being there? They want to know, they want to follow the rules, but they don't. But since everybody is going in there, they don't want to get in trouble. I think that's where they were coming from. You know what I mean? They want to follow the rules, but they want to know exactly what the rules are.
Yeah, so the rules are, you can go get your food, but you can't clump up and congregate.
Okay.
But it's incumbent on the people organizing the distribution, just the way we had to do it out at College Park, where we space everyone. They've got to put, whether it's chalk on the ground or masking tape on the ground, they've got to keep it organized, because there is no good in providing food for people who need it if you're also creating a situation where they're going to get infected.
I agree. I get that. One of my neighbors came up to me and she actually said to me, Kim, if it's open, then it's okay, and I can do what I want. And I went, no, you're gonna have to start thinking for yourself. And if you're going into a group of people, just because everybody else is doing it, that doesn't mean. but I think it's groupthink that we've got now in some of our neighborhoods. So thank you very much for doing that. I'm going to come back to her and I'm going to say what you said because I like your answer. My other question was, other bigger, and we're not big in any means with all our money, but what I was curious about is that some of the Amazon and some of the other huge companies are taking cuts in pay and salaries for the higher end salaries. I don't really pay attention to what everybody makes. I haven't really looked, but I was curious to know if that was a discussion that was happening in the city, if people were taking cuts in pay for the higher salaries to help those that are on the lower salary end so they can still stay at work.
We are having that discussion. And right now, with the exception of the part-time folks, everyone is at work.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Great, thank you very much, Kim. All right, so our next person we have is Mr. Manuel Herrera, and let's see, you should have an option there to unmute yourself, Manuel. Go ahead and click that.
Okay, thank you. So just to make sure, could you all hear me?
We do hear you, yes.
All right, excellent. Well, Mayor Flynn, Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez, Mr. City Manager, and Gabe, thank you guys so much for doing this. You know, I mean, I've always said that the key is always to inform the people. You know, that's something we've always asked for. And hey, if this pandemic brought anything out, it's the importance of informing the people on a consistent basis. And you guys are doing a great job at it. So I truly want to commend all our city officials, the mayor, Alex, everybody who's done their part. I've seen all your videos, the individual videos. I've seen the chief of police's videos that they're constantly putting on. I'm always sharing them on Citizens for a Better Oxnard. So, you know, that's the people being informed is the key, and they're happy for that. So I thank you for that. Thank you so much. My first question is actually for Gabe. Gabe, will this particular presentation be re-televised, or is it going to be able to be shared on other platforms?
So I am recording the presentation, yes. I haven't had any experience with recording and what format that takes afterwards, so there's going to be a little homework for me afterwards to see how that can be shared or you know, posted online or whatever the case is. At minimum, I do have a record of the questions that were asked and what the responses were, as well as what was presented to the public. And we will typically submit that to neighborhood services, and that kind of goes on the record as the minutes for this meeting, because this is technically a neighborhood council meeting for Fremont South. So at minimum, those minutes would be available for review later. But ideally, I would like to make this available for people to view sometime later if they needed to.
Yes, excellent. And it's because there was a lot of great information given out today. In the event that is not re-televised or anything, if I may make a suggestion to Alex and Carmen and the mayor, that maybe at the next city council meeting, you can kind of touch on what you spoke today, because again, it was very, very informative information. So, and it's something that people really need to hear. So thanks for that. The only thing missing, if you don't mind me saying, is I think it would have been nice to have Chief Whitney on this as well. But just a recommendation. And then I had a question for Alex. You kind of touched on this a little bit in your presentation, but so do you think there will be a bailout available for the cities? I mean, is that something that's that you think will happen? Because it was good to hear that you were working on balancing the budget, and then now this happened, and that takes you now a step back. So hopefully there will be a bailout, and hopefully that'll help us out. Do you think that'll happen?
Well, very quickly, this virus is like taking 10 steps backwards. So as I said earlier, I'm actually hopeful. I'm actually optimistic, which I haven't been in many years with regard to any meaningful assistance from the feds. I think something will come of it. My concern is depending on the negotiations and all the various interests. My concern is, number one, in the end, whatever formula they utilize determines how much money we may or may not get. Number two, what path would the money get here? If it takes the traditional path of having to be dispersed first through the state and then through the county, then I would be worried that that it would take a long time. And then thirdly, I'm worried that if the mechanism to receive any funding from the feds, whether it's in the form of a loan, a reimbursement application, or an all-out grant. So we, of course, are advocating for a direct grant to all cities, and that the funding be flexible so that we can use it in our general, to plug the general fund where we're losing so much revenue. So almost all cities in the country are advocating for this right now. So that's why I'm hopeful something has to happen. But again, the caveat is, how much would it be for a city like Oxnard? How long would it take to get here, and what form is it in? Is it a grant, which is what we desire, or is it a loan, or is it a reimbursement application process? So those are the nuances. And again, I'm hopeful, but it's nothing we can bank on today. Hopefully in the next several weeks, we may learn good news. Thanks, Manny.
Okay, well, hopefully that'll happen, because the government's bailing out big companies. Hopefully they'll consider the cities as well.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I just wanted to say it's good that there's 20 to 25 people on board with this presentation, but obviously we're the biggest city in the county. I'd love to see more people participate. So anything that can be done to get the word out for the future meetings so that people can attend, because this is very, very great information. So if I didn't, the only way I heard about it was through Gabe. So I didn't hear about it any other way. And I consider myself pretty, informative out there, and I know what's going on. So if there could be a little more publicity before these meetings so we can get more people involved. And then Mayor Flynn, I agree with you. We need a Trader Joe's in Oxnard. So Alex, can you work on that? And and lastly, when we're done with this presentation, I don't mind sticking around while Alex gives everybody a tour of his house. So I'm up for that. All right, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening.
Great, thank you, Manny.
I'm actually at Trader Joe's.
All right, so next we had a question from Walter Morris, and what I'm going to do is, Walter, if you wanted to ask your question verbally, I'm going to, you should get a notification that you can unmute yourself. And while you do that, I'm going to try and share this video. And is that you talking, Walt?
Awesome. Yeah. Am I
okay,
there?
go right ahead. And I'm going to, while you're doing that, I'm going to try and share my screen to show the thing you sent me.
That'd be great. And I'm going to send it out to everybody as well. And mine was more of a statement than a question, if you will. But it's in regards to the district attorney, Greg Tunton's refat announcement that's been sent out. And we're seeing a lot of real estate fraud going out there. And I just kind of want to give everybody a heads up that one of the things that they're finding, kind of like back in 08 with the short sales, is a lot of these phone calls of people calling up and saying, hey, we can help you redo your, get your forbearance or bury your mortgages and help you out. And it's a complete fraud. The catch and the thing that we're trying to get out to everybody is legitimate help is not going to seek us, seek you out. You've got to go to them. So please, if anybody out there is looking at trying to do something with your mortgage or refinance or try to get some kind of a forbearance, call your lender. They're the only ones that can do that. And it's really the Hispanic community that we need to try to get to. And, it's just a matter of getting the word out. I'm hoping by tomorrow you'll see it posted all through Facebook. The comment that you see that Gabe just posted to everybody is a message that we need to get out, and especially to our, to our Hispanic speaking families that are out there, because that's the target for them. Other than that, I love this Zoom program. I love these Zoom meetings. I think it's an educational thing. If we can really try to get things out there, I think that's a big plus. Thanks again, you guys, and thanks the three of you for doing this.
Great. Thank you, Walter. Thank you for the information too. And Walter and his wife, Camille, live in Fremont South in our neighborhood and are great neighbors and very knowledgeable about exactly what he was talking about the real estate market and the regulations behind that and everything. And he brings up a great point around the predatory practices that we'll be seeing in real estate industry, the mortgage industry, door to door, as Carmen had mentioned, people calling you, people calling about stimulus package. So any information I think that the city can provide just to be proactive about that as we hear about it would be great, and bilingual information obviously as well. So thank you again, Walter, appreciate that. And I don't see any more hands up, and so what I'm going to do is, I did have a couple of questions. I was taking notes as we were going through the city manager and Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor's presentations. And so just to kind of recap, it sounds like street sweeping has been suspended and there are no tickets, which I just want to make that point because that's, I think, is the most common question I keep hearing, at least from my neighbors and my grandparents too. Is there street sweeping this week? Is there a street sweeper? And I've let people know, as far as I know, it's suspended until further notice. Now, the double-edged sword to that, as Alex Nguyen had mentioned, is that there is no revenue now from that. And with us now being in a already a financially challenging position, but now even more so with the lessening of sales tax and transient occupancy tax. That's just another thing to keep in mind there. And so Mr. City Manager, is it safe to assume that street sweeping will be discontinued until the stay-at-home notice is essentially relaxed or all the way ended? Is that safe to say it's not going to happen until we hear otherwise?
So yes, that aspect of it, yes. At the very earliest that I would ask the council to lift that would be when the stay-at-home order is lifted officially by the public health official. But there's also a policy question for the city council. And so the rationale behind suspending ticketing and hence street sweeping ticketing is that people are not allowed to go to work if they're not in essential services, and B, unfortunately, many people have lost their jobs. So it's a struggle to, and then therefore the neighborhoods are crowded with cars throughout the day. So again, when the order's lifted, it would be a reasonable time for us to begin street sweeping again and ticketing again. However, it's a policy decision for the council to consider, because when the order is lifted or when it ends, a lot of people aren't going to have jobs to go back to the next morning. We're going to have many residents here and families here who are going to have to find their way back into the workforce. So that's going to be a policy discussion that I will raise with the council. So I would not expect street sweeping to begin the day after the order is lifted.
Great, thank you very much. And then the next item I have here, our next question, is around parks. And for those who have driven by parks or gone for a walk through them just to get out and get some fresh air, you may have noticed that the playgrounds are physically blocked off. They are closed to keep children from playing on them and touching common surfaces. And most of those surfaces are plastic, PVC, and metal, which, if you've been reading some of the information that's been coming out from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, if the virus were to land on that type of a surface, it has a very long life of staying on metal surfaces and plastic surfaces. So it makes sense to have those closed. there were questions that came out around, are any of the amenities, other amenities open, such as basketball courts, tennis courts, are those closed even though they are not physically blocked off?
So I'll answer very quickly. Those are closed also per the public health officials order. When they issue the extension for next week, we may see if they change any of that. But the bottom line is the reason these amenities are closed is we don't want people, touching the equipment, or we don't want groups of, 3 or 6 or 8 or 10 people playing basketball, because there's a lot of physical contact. So that's the key, is to prevent the spread of these virus transmissions. So that's why we want to prevent people from doing activities where they will definitely spread the virus.
All right, thank you. And my next question is around the 311 app. Has there been a decrease in responses or services by 311, or is that still in full effect?
It's slowed down a lot.
Okay, so does that mean that are fewer resources dedicated to that, or are there fewer people reporting?
That I don't know, Gabe. I have to find out. I know slowing down on the response, a couple reasons, is for the first several weeks of this stay-at-home order, we only allowed people who were providing essential services to report to work. We needed everyone to stay home to quarantine. And we're also repurposing some of our staff to go and address the most urgent issues. So there's a lot of slowdown, but we still want people to report issues in the 311 app, because then we have a record and a log of it.
Okay, great, thank you.
But I'll get the stats.
Okay. So my last question, and it's more just addressing something I heard or a rumor, and I would just like to hear it officially. There have been concerns that because of the social distancing and wanting to keep people at a safe distance from one another, there was concern that the navigation shelter or center, or the homeless shelter on K Street, that it would be closing. And would somebody like to address that, whether that's true or not?
Go. I'll let one of you two take that one.
I believe the mayor touched on it a little bit, but maybe we could just, get that straight away.
Well, the rumor is absolutely false, but I don't know if the mayor pro tem or the mayor want to add anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to comment on that, or? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Mayor Pro Tem, there's a question about the future of the shelter on K Street. I don't know if you have anything to comment on that.
Well, I'll say, I'm on one of these committees, the Continuum of Care, which is a county board. Sit on it. Emilio Ramirez sits on it. People from other cities and agencies like Area Housing Authority, and there is funding for our current shelter in their proposal that we just approved yesterday, and in a meeting much like this, but an official meeting that was, we had a vote, et cetera, et cetera. So there's more funding coming from the state for homeless services, a big influx, but again, it goes to the county through the continuum of care, and then it gets doled out to the different agencies. So I think the county is, along with our housing folks, are doing a terrific job dealing with the people who are homeless, especially ones who are at risk of getting the virus, those that have been diagnosed as positive. So doing a terrific job. Obviously can't cure everything now, but as far as I know, the Armory is not closing anytime soon until we make other arrangements, which still have to go to the council for approval. But the PAL is being used so that in addition to the Armory, people can have social distance, physical distancing while they're sheltering there. I don't know if that's exactly the question that needed to be answered, but also we have the counties through with the city has taken over the Vagabond. Is it the Vagabond?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
As you said earlier, Alex, not only 9 of the spaces there, of the rooms are being used by the county for homeless folk.
Great, thank you. And that does answer the question. I just wanted to address it directly, that the shelter is not in any danger of closing, and programming there is continuing as it has, with now the consideration of distancing being allowed for the clients there. All right, we did have a couple more hands come up. And so we have Jack Villa, who's actually the chair of the INCO and chair of Hobson Park East. So Jack, you should see the notification to unmute yourself. And is that working for you, Jack? All right, well, trying to get, let's see if I can force you to be unmuted here, Jack.
There he
Let's
is.
try it again.
Gabe,
Yes, sir.
I have another interview scheduled at 7, and I told them, look, there might be some questions, so I want to go on a little bit longer, but I told them 7:15 at the latest. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity, and thanks for the questions. I think they're really good.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Can you hear
Mr.
me?
Flynn. And I do have Jack now. Can you hear us, Jack?
Yes, I can hear
All
you.
right.
You hear me now?
Great, we hear you, yes.
Yes, I don't know if, well, I want to thank you, Gabe, for putting on this meeting online. You're right, it is the first one. I know some neighborhoods are already having meetings online with their board, but not actually their neighborhood yet. So, but this is the first neighborhood meeting. So thank you, Gabe, for putting this on. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Oh, okay, very good. I have a real quick question. I don't know if it's for the city, maybe it's for the county, but what coordination is being done with emergency services, with the hospital in the area or other hospitals in the area, as far as medical services or equipment or capacities of hospitals, and just keeping the city aware of the available services that some of the hospitals might have for the residents.
So almost all of that is in the court of the county, and I think they're doing a spectacular job of coordinating, not just with the hospitals and health centers here in the county, but also in Southern California, and they're certainly coordinating with the state's public health department as well. So I think they're doing a great job with regard to fighting for supplies and all that. As we all know, that's a struggle across the country. Our fire department, the EMS division, we are working with them closely. But again, almost all of the medical stuff is being coordinated, directed, and implemented by the county.
Okay, are they keeping cities in the loop as far as the situation at hand, whether it's peaking or leveling off or?
Yes, so a couple things. So every morning we have a phone call with the county CEO and the health official and all 10 of the city managers. Once a week they have a call, believe it or not, with all the elected officials, all the city council members of all 10 cities to provide an update. But more importantly for the public, they publish that information every day on the vcemergency.com website. So if you go there, you will see daily updates with the statistics, numbers, and it's usually several pages of information. Also has the statistics on the number of homeless people being quarantined. It provides information about services for seniors. There's a lot of good information. Again, it's vcemergency.com. Daily updates there.
All right, thank you.
I add something here. Are you still there, Tim? Did you leave us?
I think he,
Tim did step away. He's no longer on the meeting.
Well, I wanted to say, I want to thank Jack for that question, because I actually get an email from Jack every evening, which is the daily update on the virus in the city or in the county. And it's important information for people to know that we're still in the middle of this and people are still getting sick. The scary thing is, it's pretty clear that people can be contagious and not know it, not have any symptoms. And I understand that's when they're the most contagious, when they don't even know it. So I tell myself and my family, just consider that you might have it and be very careful with yourself and with everybody. The hot spots, we don't know that there's any hot spots in our city, but I wanted to say this about our city staff. And for more information, the presentation that was done at the Community Services Committee that I chaired Tuesday had tremendous information from the city staff about all of the things they've pivoted to do more services to the residents than they normally do. For example, our librarians are calling all of the senior patrons, that's 10,000 people, 10,000 card holders that they are going to call to do sort of a check-in. Are you okay? Do you need anything? I was blown away by the efforts of just our librarian and the things they're on for the residents and for the students, for the young people. And the same is true of our rec department. Also doing a lot of this online, also checking in with people with special needs. So I would encourage people to go back and archive information about what our staff is doing. And I also want to say that right before the stay-at-home order came down in first few days of March, I happened to be at a meeting with City Manger and happened to be there, and I butted into the meeting with our chief, Darwin Base, about what the city's plan was if we knew the virus was going to come. At that point, there had not been any community spread. There had just, people knew it was coming. It was going to come everywhere. And they had a plan, and they had equipment, and they had strategy. I'm so grateful for what our emergency people were thinking of doing way before this started. They just were ready. And I'm in contact with the council contact, and we're lucky, I have to say. So I just leave it there.
Great, thank you very much. And thank you, Jack, for coming out as well, and for the questions and the comments also. We have two final hands up. I do want to draw attention to it being 7:20. I did promise everyone that the stated meeting time would be 6 to 7:30. However, this is not like the library meeting room B, where if we need to stay past 7:30, would our speakers be willing to do that if we needed to?
Yes.
And for those of you who have other commitments after that time, you're welcome to step off as well. But I did just want to draw attention to the time. So Kim Winch has actually raised her hand again, so I'm going to go ahead and have her come back on. And
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I don't have a question, but we did have a Ready and Resilient meeting, so I wanted to give you a short report on that. Chief Base announced that at the beginning of next week, I don't know, Alex, if you're aware of this, because he said there was going to be telemedicine that's going to be coming out next week, and all of that information will be sent out through all kind of different avenues next week. So people can call in and talk to an actual doctor, and if they have like a cut or something like that, they can take a picture of it and their doctor can see it and say, yes, you need stitches, or no, you don't, and this is what you need to do, in order so they don't head to the hospitals and the emergency rooms and the doctors to keep everybody at home. More information, he said, on that was going to be coming out. Also, Scott Brewer made a report saying that all of you, Alex, and all of the department heads met every day, and that whether it wasn't physical or called in, and the good news is that a lot of your information is now the same every day. So now you're looking forward to coming back and you're not worrying about some of the drastic stuff. You've got a plan in place and everything is looking really good. Someone asked about if you don't have a doctor and you started to feel symptoms, what do you do? Jaime Villa answered this question. He said there is a clinic down in, let me see, I have to take my glasses off. He says there's a clinic down in South Oxnard and it's called Las Isla Family Medical Group. And that's what he recommended people, if you don't have a doctor, you feel like you have symptoms, and you go in there and you get in line. There's a phone number you call to make an appointment, and then you get in line and they ask you questions, whether you fill out all of those symptoms that they need. So if you don't have a doctor to get an order to go down there, the information, I can give you the phone number. Let's see, it's 805-204-9500. And there's also a website. And I have to tell you, you guys, the city's website is absolutely awesome. I have been so excited to see how much information is there. A lot of times people were asking me questions. I just gave them a link to your website because it had everything on it. I was very excited to see that. It also showed all the essential services and the updates. But I wanted to say, another person had a question about the COVID testing numbers, and I asked Jaime about that because the numbers don't match the totals of how many positives and how many people are actually tested. And someone was curious to know if that meant the difference was the tests have not come back yet. And I just assumed if they weren't up there, that meant they were negative. And he affirmed that that was true. So the difference between the positive and the total people tested, all those people are negative. You don't have to worry about those people. And I think that's my report. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Kim.
Thanks.
All right, so we have one last hand up, and that is Mr. Herrera again. So I'll go ahead and unmute him. And are you able to get your notification there, Manny?
No, I didn't. Hello, Gabe?
Yes, we hear you now. Sorry, that was my mistake. He was in the middle of talking, and I took away his privilege to talk. So sorry about that. All right, yeah. Go right ahead. We hear you now.
I want that tool.
No, actually, I didn't have a question. I don't know what happened, but I actually didn't have a question.
That's okay. It might have been that you just raised your hand earlier. All right. Well, we do have one more that came up, and that is Miss Barbara Macri Ortiz. So I'll have Miss Ortiz. You should get a notification that you can unmute. Go ahead and speak, Barbara. I see that you are unmuted, but we don't hear anything from you.
Turn up the volume.
Hi, Barbara.
So we're not having any sound from you, Barbara. I don't, and I see that you were unmuted. So I'm not sure if your microphone's unplugged or if it's turned down.
Maybe Barbara can send her question through the chat.
Yes, would you like to do that, Barbara, if you get a chance on that? And we'll give her a minute or so to do that. Go ahead and type your message into the chat. You can click the chat button and then type it into there. While she does, I did have one thing on here, and it's in regards to communication, and it was something I was reminded of when Kim gave her report from the Ready and Resilient meeting. Chief Base did ask the question of the group. He asked, how is the city doing on communication? What are your thoughts? What's working really well? What can we improve upon? And my input was that I've been seeing all of the communication coming through the various social media platforms. I've seen things on the city's website, and I don't have access to the TV channels to either Spectrum or Fios because I don't have television service. So I don't know if the same communication is going on there. But my only input on that was that similar to what I said earlier about people not knowing about the street sweeping, is I'm just wondering, how are we getting metrics around how people are receiving the messaging, and how do we get word out to people who are not getting it, even with all the types of platforms that the city's doing outreach on? And I honestly have no answer to that. One thing that did come up in the meeting was similar to what the school district has, which is the auto dialing, where people will opt into that and they can get regular updates from the city. And it could be, it's an analog thing that it calls them on their cell phone, or it sends them a text message or sends emails. And you opt into that. You say, this is the way I'd like to be contacted with updates from the city. And the thing beyond that, beyond where we are right now, is in the future, it also gives us the opportunity to say when street sweeping comes back on, people can get updates saying, reminder, this Wednesday is street sweeping for your neighborhood, or something along those lines. Reminder, the city had a holiday and trash service will be delayed one day. And it could be phone calls, text messages, whatever it might be. But that's just one thing that I thought of as a result of that conversation with Chief Base. So let's see. I don't see. Oh, here's Barbara's question. She says, I just want to thank Gabe for setting this up, and Alex and Carmen and Tim for their participation. I'm very proud of how well Oxnard is doing. We are fortunate to have great leadership and staff, and that is best demonstrated in emergency times. So thanks, and stay safe to all. Well, thank you, Barbara. Appreciate that.
Very nice.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks,
All right.
Barb.
So at this point, are there any other questions, or would anyone have any last things they'd like to ask?
Say one last thing.
Yes, go ahead.
Again, check out the city's website. Check out the presentation at Community Services Committee this past Tuesday. It's archived. And also, don't forget our restaurants that are doing takeout and delivery. We want to keep them alive. And I've been doing it at least once a week. And it's safe, it's good, and it keeps people employed. And hopefully the restaurants will be there when we get out of this shutdown.
Great, thank you. Mr. City Manager, do you have any last parting words for us?
Yes. Again, thank you for doing this. This is fantastic. I just need to encourage everyone and all of your friends and family and neighbors to hold strong. We've got to get through the next several weeks here, and we just can't give in to our anxiety or our restlessness. We just need to hold strong so that our community truly flattens this curve. Is what I would hate to see is that people go back out too soon, and then we have a second wave, which means we'll be in this longer, and economically we'll suffer. Everything will be worse. So again, we expect the public health official of the county to extend the order over the weekend through May 15th, and we just all need to hold strong. And thank you again for organizing this meeting. This is fantastic.
Thanks, Gabe.
Great,
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you to both of you and to our mayor for taking the time to be with us here tonight. And Katie Casey, our communications manager, posted a link in the chat that you all can see there. If you go to youtube.com/Oxnard News, you'll see videos archived there that are communications going out to the public about COVID-19, and I'm sure about a number of other things that are going on throughout the city as well. So again, thank you all panelists for coming on. I thank all of our participants for coming on board as well. This is a first try for me and a first try for our neighborhood. And so I hope it went well and you got a lot of information. And I think Mayor Pro Tem said it best. This is the stance I've been taking, is we all have to, I've been thinking that, you know, I have to pretend like I have this and I can give it to anybody at any time. Meaning I have to stay home, I have to stay away from others, especially from my grandparents or my neighbors who are seniors or anyone who's in a vulnerable population. We need to help stop the spread of this as much as we can so that we can get through this together. So thank you all again very much. I appreciate it. I will, next steps is to see how the recording of this can be shared out. At minimum, we'll get minutes to the city and those will be available to folks as well. Hope you all have a great night. Thank you very much and take care, stay safe and stay well.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Miss you.